Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy March. We made it into the month of March. I know that this is an odd hour for me to be on, but here I am. I didn't get to get on last night during my usual times, but here I am today. So, good morning to everybody. And again, happy March. It is March 1st, and I'm excited that we have crossed over from the month of February. February was long. February was a lot. All right. But here we are. Here we are. So, good morning to everybody that's watching, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I want to say good morning to you. This is Social Work Month. And so, after I do this, I'm actually preparing to go to talk to a group of social workers. I was invited to a social work conference, even though I'm not a social worker, I'm an LPC, but we're still in the counseling professions. We're still in the helping professions. And so I'm excited about that later today. I'm also excited because today is the birthday of House of Healing International, the church that the Lord graced me to found and to pastor 8 years ago. And so I'm excited because this is March 1st, and it's always a good time to reflect back and to just be thankful for all that the Lord has done for us in ministry. So today I want to talk about a hot topic. I want to talk about anxiety. Anxiety. So I want to get into this. I'll say that last month, in the month of February, we started a pilot program called Group Therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith. Okay, Group Therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith. And it was absolutely amazing. I was surprised at the feedback. I was surprised at how well it went because it was a new program. And so, what we dealt with in group therapy, it was 4 weeks. Every Saturday in February, we dealt with the topic of anxiety. So, helping people with anxiety, helping people to walk through anxiety, to get some different skills and coping mechanisms. And so it was a closed session, no recordings, right? None of that, no replays, just dealing with people one on one. It was very interactive in the group setting. And I was just surprised. And I'm just thankful for how well that went. I had some people that were reaching out after the deadline and said, "Hey, I'm trying to get into this," or "Let me know when you're doing it next time." So I want to announce before I start talking about what I'm going to talk about today, that we are bringing group therapy back. Okay, so group therapy will be coming back in the month of April. In the month of April, seating is limited. I've already pushed it out to my mailing list and other groups that I lead, so to speak. And so some of those seats have already been taken. So group therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith, it will be every Saturday in the month of April, and we're going to deal with anxiety again. So I kind of want to do this as a prelude to that group therapy session, right? So let's talk about what anxiety is. Let's start there. And good morning to you guys that are coming in. So, anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, and uneasiness. That's the best way to describe anxiety. Anxiety is worry. It is worry, nervousness, uneasiness. The worry is about an imminent event or something that has an uncertain outcome. And so, you find yourself worried about something that hasn't happened yet. You don't know how it's going to happen, how it's going to turn out. You're just worried about it. So it's an uncertain outcome that you're worried about. When we look at the DSM-5, which we use in my profession of counseling to diagnose and to label, so to speak, different disorders and illnesses, it will tell you that anxiety is anticipation of a future threat. Okay, so that's the first thing, anticipation of a future threat. It is also described as excessive and persistent worry. Okay, excessive and persistent worry. Those of you that are watching live with me, please share this with somebody. I believe just this little bit that I'm going to give out today is going to be helpful to someone that may be dealing with anxiety. Anxiety is our body's response. That's the first thing. So there's a physical aspect to anxiety, and then there's a mental, psychological aspect to anxiety. The physical part is that anxiety is our body's response to situations that we perceive to be threatening. Okay, so it is our physiological response to anything that we may perceive to be threatening. For example, and some of you may can identify with this, you may have like a knot in your stomach, a heaviness in your stomach, your head might start to hurt. Like this is when you start to worry, our body begins to go through these physical changes. Okay, so this is literally something that the brain is doing because it perceives something or it interprets something to be threatening. And as I told them in group therapy, anything, literally anything, we can train our brain to think that anything is a threat to us. Right. So we all have these different threats. We all have these different triggers. And it's just what we've trained our brain to think. Okay. So anxiety, like anything else, it has triggers. It has triggers. There are certain things that set off anxiety. I encourage people to get to know and understand what their anxiety triggers are. Okay, so what is that thing that has you feeling nervous, has you feeling uneasy, has you feeling apprehensive? And that's half the battle, just knowing what it is. Because once we perceive something to be threatening, all of these alarms start going off in our head. That this is the amygdala. It's the amygdala part of the brain. So these alarms start going off in our head, and it tells us this primal response: fight, flight, freeze. Okay, you're feeling worried. This worry may be leading into fear. So it's like you need to pause, you need to run, you need to do something because this is a threat. Okay, this is happening in the amygdala. I'm repeating that because this is something that happens naturally. Of course, there's a spiritual element to everything, and we understand the spirit realm and the spirit world and all of that. But this is something natural that happens because my brain, which is a part of my physical body, begins to sound these alarms that tell me I'm in danger, right? There's a threat here. And so when you come into something like group therapy with me, and this program again is open to you guys for registration now. But when you come into group therapy or when you see an individual therapist or counselor, one of the things that you are able to do is work to decrease those anxiety alarms. Okay, you work to decrease those anxiety alarms, right? So things that were threatening now seem to be less threatening. I gave this example in the group about flying. So you can kind of work yourself up, especially if you've never flown. Like most people who are afraid of flying, they've never flown. A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, they've never flown. So what you have to do is face that because it's really a fear. Good morning. You have to face that fear in order to get over it. And we're going to go into that in the group because it's really called exposure. So the more that you expose yourself to something, the less threatening it appears to be. That's good. The more you expose yourself to something, the less threatening it appears to be. Now, for me, it was once upon a time it was flying. And that's always surprising to people because they're like, you're flying all the time. But I don't like flying. I still don't like it, but I'm not afraid. Does that make sense in the comments? I don't like it, but I'm not afraid. What was worrisome to me, if I can say it that way, was takeoff. Okay, so I don't like takeoff. I still don't like takeoff, but I don't feel this nervousness like something is going to happen. So here's what I had to do. I'm giving you one of the things that we're going to talk about in the group therapy sessions. I had to begin to study airplanes. I had to study airplanes. I had to study aerodynamics. I had to study all of these things and not from people that were just like posting random things like pilots. I had to go and YouTube what pilots were saying specifically about takeoff. And one pilot said, and it freed me. One pilot said that when you are taking off, when you're in that ascension phase, it feels like you are falling. Okay. It feels like you're falling because you are defying the law of gravity at that point. Right. So it feels like you're falling backwards. And that was like, that's it. That's the feeling that I don't like. And this pilot is explaining it, breaking it down, saying this is natural, this is normal. We even feel it in the cockpit. So you see how exposing myself to it, not backing away from flying and also getting more knowledge. So the more knowledge that we have, the more information that we have. Somebody type information. The more knowledge that we have, the more information that we have, it helps us to decrease those anxiety alarms. So for those of you that are just coming in, I want to say welcome to you guys. Somebody probably shared this live with you, and I'm just honored to have you here because today we're talking about anxiety. Okay, y'all pardon me. I'm trying to get my live together on IG. All right, is this helping anybody so far? Is this helping anybody? So you have to get information, and when you begin to get information, it decreases those worries. Okay, so again, welcome to you guys that are just coming in. We are talking about anxiety today. So anxiety, like anything else, like I said, it can have triggers, right? It has triggers that are associated with it. So as you're listening to me now, I want you to begin to do some work. I want you to begin to identify what are your anxiety triggers. Okay, what are your anxiety triggers? For some, it may be certain conversations. Okay, certain conversations may be a trigger. Certain television shows, I'm just giving some examples. Certain television shows may be an anxiety trigger for you, right? Certain places. So if you have to drive by certain places at certain times, if something negative happened to you there, it may be a trigger for you. So it may be something that causes you to feel worried, nervous, uneasy. Okay. So identify what your triggers are. And you want to do this because anything that you don't have control over now has control over you. That's good. Anything that you don't have control over now has control over you. And anxiety, as most of us know, can be very consuming, right? It can be very consuming. It can take over your day. It can take over your week. It can take over your life. It can stop you from moving forward. But I need somebody to type this in the chat. I will not be led by anxiety this year. Yep. I will not be led by anxiety this year. Again, I will not be led by anxiety. I will not be controlled by anxiety this year. Now, just a few statistics. About 18.1% of the adult population in the United States deals with anxiety. Okay. It may seem like a low number, but that is not a low number. Okay. About 18.1%. 18.1% is approximately 42 million people. So 42 million people in the United States of America have an anxiety disorder, and that's according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Now, let's talk about that number. So there's 18.1% at the anxiety level, 18.1%. However, we all have anxiety. Okay, so whether it is disorder level or not, we all have anxiety. Let me tell you how anxiety works for us. Anxiety works for us because if you were never anxious, if you never had those mental thoughts and physiological feelings, certain things wouldn't get done. Right. So, for example, you would have a paper due and not feel any kind of press to do it. Right. So, you wouldn't be able to reach some of your goals if you didn't have some level of anxiety. Does that make sense? You wouldn't be able to escape danger if you didn't have some level of anxiety. You would get bills and they would just kind of pass over you. Oh, it's just, a bill. But when you get a bill, you begin to see, okay, this is something that I need to take care of. Does that make sense? So do you see how some anxiety is good? Well, let's use that same example of a bill, right? That can become so excessive for you that anytime you see an envelope, you begin to get into worry and to fear. Yeah, you begin to get into worry and to fear because you've associated envelopes with bills. It could be a check. I know I'm not the only one that has experienced that before, right? It can look like a bill, but be a check. And sometimes you just avoid it, you don't deal with it, and sometimes you like rush to open it and rush to get to it because you're so anxious. Any extreme is still anxiety, right? But you've associated this envelope or envelopes in general, you've generalized it to just mean bills. So now you have an excessive worry when you see an envelope. Does that make sense? So we all have anxiety, and we need anxiety to somewhat keep us on our toes, because without anxiety, again, we wouldn't get things done. So anxiety disorders They are the most prevalent emotional health disorders in the United States. Okay, that often shocks and surprises people. The most prevalent mental health disorder in the United States of America is not depression. I know depression is talked about so much, but it's really anxiety that has the highest numbers. And often, more often than not, anxiety and depression go together. They kind of feed off of one another, right? So many times when we begin to deal with people in therapy, the anxiety is linked to the depression is linked to the anxiety. Okay. But the most prevalent mental health disorder in the United States is anxiety. So only about out of 100% of people that deal with anxiety, only about 33% of individuals seek treatment for it. That's a low number. So we have 100% of 18% dealing with it, but only about 33% of people actually seek out treatment. And let's talk about our adolescents. About 30% of adolescent ages, so this is 13 to 18. Okay, 13 to 18. About 30% of adolescents experience anxiety, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Okay, now it was 30%. Those numbers are actually up since 2019. Now, let's just pause for a moment and I want you to sound off in the chat. What do you think changed in 2019, 2020? Why would the numbers be one way in 2019 and then pivot to be another way for 2020? Okay. The answer is there's a lot that happened in 2020. And 2020 just did not impact adults. 2020 impacts children. So we're dealing with a global pandemic. We're dealing with isolation, right? We're dealing with separation from friends, right? Separation from their peer group, which is very big for that age. So the anxiety level in adolescence has actually gone up since 2019. I want to give you some more symptoms just so you can kind of see where you are. I want to give you some more symptoms of anxiety, those physiological symptoms, even. So you have excessive worry, of course. You also have restlessness and tension. Okay. You can feel very restless, very tense, or as I would say, very on edge. There can also be physical trembling. Okay. Physical trembling. Also, irritability. These are symptoms of anxiety, fatigue, restlessness, racing thoughts, panic attacks that feel like heart attacks, even gastrointestinal problems. Now, for the most part, when we start, and I worked in school system as a therapist for a minute, so often when you see a child complaining of stomach issues, like their stomach is hurting, they've ate or it's not time for them to eat yet, and they're complaining of stomach issues, usually that's a child's way of communicating that there's some anxiety. Okay. So you have to be very mindful of what children say to you because often they don't have the terminology, they don't have the language. And often as adults, we don't have the language because many of us grew up in cultures where people would say, oh, my nerves are bad. My nerves are bad. I got to take my nerve pill, right? What they were really speaking of was anxiety. Okay, they were speaking about anxiety. So often we don't have the right terminology, and so we don't know what to do with what we're feeling. But I'm letting you know that most of the things that I'm listing, or all the things that I'm listing, have to do with anxiety. So chronic back pain, insomnia, muscle tension, sweating, increased heart rate, headaches such as migraines. All of these things, are associated with anxiety. For those of you that are just coming in, I want to encourage you, and we're going to drop this in the chat. I want to encourage you to sign up for group therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith, because in group therapy, we're going to be dealing with how to handle this anxiety, how to relieve this anxiety. And so if you're on Instagram, you can go to my profile, to my bio, and click that link, and it will take you there. All right. So as I close, because this is just a preview for what we're going to be doing in group therapy. As we close, I want to give you a few things that you probably did not associate with anxiety. So many of you have seen this post before, but I want to give it to you verbally. These are things that you probably did not think of were related to anxiety, but they are. Number one, overthinking. Overthinking is associated with anxiety. Somebody type overthinking. Overthinking, being stuck in your head, that is associated with high levels of anxiety. Also, the belief that you have to be perfect in order to avoid judgment or criticism. So perfection, because perfection is always rooted in the fear of judgment and criticism. Yep. So perfectionism. Also, feeling like you have to overachieve or be the best at everything in order to be valued. So this is getting into control, right? And also more perfectionism. Here's another thing that's a symptom of anxiety that we often don't think about, talk about, being worried about your choice of wording when you interact with others. Okay, being worried about your choice of wording when you interact with others. And that also leads to being unable to speak up, right? Being unable to speak up for yourself. That's linked to anxiety. Also, believing that you're being secretly judged. I hope this is helping somebody. Like, we have to identify these things in order to walk out the healing process. So if you feel like you can't speak up, or every time you open your mouth, you're worried about your words, you want to place things correctly because you don't want to be judged, you don't want to be criticized, all of that's linked to anxiety. Also, being your own worst critic. Yep. Being your own worst critic is linked to anxiety. Here's another one, thinking that people can see inside of your head. Like, they can see inside of your head, they can read your mind, they can see your thoughts. So then you become shameful about what you're thinking or what you're dealing with internally. That deals with anxiety. And the last one that I'll give you is over planning. Somebody type that. Over planning. Over planning. Over planning. So this is over planning for situations, over planning for events. Your plan has a plan that has a plan that has a plan. This is like going on a trip. This is just an example that pops in my head, like going on a trip and you got to pack, 100 hot dogs. I'm just pulling something, right? 100 hot dogs for 2 people. Because we just never know what's going to happen. That's worry. That's anxiety. That's excessive worry about an anticipated or perceived threat. Okay, so all of you that are saying this is helpful, I'm encouraging you now to get into group therapy, this group therapy program, because we're going to be dealing with all of this in a private, secure, confidential place. Because many times we want to talk about things and we want to open up and we want to get the help, but we don't feel like we're in a safe place. So I have created for you a safe place called Group Therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith. All right. So I'm wrapping this up, but let me ask you a question. What if I told you that you can greatly decrease your level of anxiety by dealing with the way you think? What if I told you you can greatly decrease your level of anxiety? Turn those anxiety alarms off in your amygdala if you begin to address the way that you think. That's a true statement. Romans 7:25. Let's pull scripture in here. Romans 7:25, it says, with the mind we serve the Lord. Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so your life is going to follow the trajectory of your thoughts. So if you don't get a handle on your thoughts, the way that you think, your thinking patterns, you will always be plagued and overwhelmed, consumed with anxiety. I always say that if you can change your thoughts, if you can change your thinking patterns, you can change your life. Because most of the things that we have gotten ourselves into, even if it was a behavior, It was the result of a thought. In therapy, we teach one of the modalities is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is actually the basis of this group therapy group that I'm doing. And CBT teaches us that thoughts lead to feelings and feelings lead to behaviors. So it started with a thought. I was thinking something. I was thinking something that I didn't deal with. I was thinking something that I did not do what 2 Corinthians 10 and 5 told me to do, cast down those thoughts. Take authority over those thoughts, right? Rebuke those thoughts. And so since I let the thought go on for so long, now it's turned into a feeling of anxiety, feeling of worry, right? Feeling of depression. But it's linked back to a thought. It's linked back to a thought that you didn't deal with. Can you type this? It starts with the way that I think. If you change your thinking, I promise you, you will change your life. The reason we go to therapy, one of the reasons is to help us with our thoughts, to change and reframe the way that we think. We go to church, right? And we hear the word of God to change the way that we think. And many times this is where repentance come in, because we have to turn. That means have an about face, have a change of thinking, have a change of mind. So we go to all of these places to change the way that we think, but often we don't actually change the way that we think. It all starts with the way that we think. We read books, right? To change the way that we think, to get more information to combat our thoughts. But we have to not just get the information, we also have to do the work. We have to do the work. Okay. So again, thoughts, remember that's your takeaway for today. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. It's a succession. It's a progression, rather. So it starts with the thought. If I don't do something with that thought, now I'm feeling some type of way. And from that, it progresses on to behavior. So I start behaving a certain way. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Amplified says in behavior. So your behavior and the way that you feel is a direct reflection to how you're thinking. Change your thinking, change your life. Okay. We have to get a handle on this year. Somebody say this year. We have to get a handle. So, okay, this month. We have to get a handle on the way that we think, so that it doesn't paralyze us. Many of you, and I'll end with this for real. Many of you, yes, anxious thoughts can become fears. Many of you have a lot of goals, dreams, aspirations, even for this new month, things that you want to do, things that you want to accomplish. Do you know what's holding you back? It's not people. I'm going to make a bold statement. It's not even the devil. The enemy is not that powerful to hold back the plan of God for your life. Did you hear what I just said? Did anybody hear what I just said? The enemy is not that powerful. We give him way too much credit, way too much authority in our lives. So even he is not that powerful. The people that you're dealing with are not that powerful. They're not. It's your mind. It's your mindset. It's the way that you think. It's the enemy, right? The scripture says, let there first be a willing mind. So for all of the goals that you have for this month and this year, the next quarter, the dreams that you have, the things that you said that God has placed in your heart, the things that have been prophesied to you, the only thing that's going to hold you back is the way that you think. Change your thinking, change your life. Somebody type that and I'm done. Change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. I want to encourage you guys. I'm done. I'm over time, but I want to encourage you guys to consider coming into this group therapy program. Again, if you're just coming in or if you came in late, we did group therapy as a pilot program in the month of February. It was extremely successful. The reviews were great. People were blessed. So we're bringing group therapy with Dr. Joshua Smith back in the month of April. All right. How many are saying, I just want to do a quick poll. How many of you are saying, I'm interested in that? That group is something that I need to be in, because we just talked about surface stuff, really, right? We didn't get into any like techniques or really principles that we dive into, and it's interactive as well. So it's not just me teaching at you, it's you being able to lock in and to ask your questions, right? To respond. All right. So if you're interested, I'm seeing you guys type interested on Instagram. I'm seeing you here on Facebook. I encourage you guys to go and to register today. Okay. And I'm saying today because seats have already been going. Seats are limited, and I don't want you to miss. Okay. I don't want you to miss out. I have to keep it small. I have to keep it small because I want to be able to touch everybody. So I can't have hundreds of people in here. So I have to keep it small. Somebody says, I'm interested, but I have class all day on Saturday. So here's what I'm going to do. Because of some of the feedback that I got, the first group, it was not recorded at all. So for this group, I'm going to record, right? So if you can't be live, there's going to be a recording. You won't get the interactive feel, but you'll at least get the teaching part, and you'll get the homework assignments. Yes, homework, because we're going to work, right? So we have homework and we have group exercises that we're going to do, but I'm going to record it and then put a limit on those recordings of like 7 days. After 7 days, they're going to expire. So if you're saying I can't do Saturdays, it's like Saturday at 9 a.m., then you need to consider the fact that we're going to be doing a recording for this. Someone is asking, can teenagers be involved? Here's what I'm going to say to that. I would want, if a teenager is involved, I would want the parent to be involved as well. Okay. So if you have that situation where it's you and your child or you and your teenager, reach out to me, send me a private message, because I won't even charge you for your child. Okay, there is a registration fee, right? Because this is you're getting some of my time and my expertise. You're getting 15 plus years of expertise, right? But I'm saying that to you guys that have children, that have teenagers, you need to register and send me a message to let me know that your child will be in on the sessions, and I won't even charge your child. How does that sound? Now that's extremely generous. When you see the price, it's going to be extremely generous, because that's not how much you would pay for group therapy. That's how much you would pay for one session, right? So I'm giving some concession here, not too much, right? But I did want to make it affordable and something that everybody can participate in. All right. So if you're interested, if you're over here on Instagram, I want you to go to my website. Thank you for those that are registering now. I see you. Thank you. Register at thejoshuasmith.com. Can somebody type that for me over on IG? Thank you, Candace. You're right on it. Thejoshuasmith.com. Go there. If you don't see it, if something is going on with the link, send me a private message, right? DM me. Let me know that I need to be in on this and I don't see the link. Okay. On Facebook, the link is posted into the comments. So you can go directly to that link and make your registration there. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, busy day for me, busy weekend. Headed out to the social work conference. It is every Saturday in April. Okay. So it starts in April. Right. So headed out to the social work conference. I have to do a session there for therapists. And so I'm excited about that. So I'll see you guys in group therapy. And I look forward to that. I look forward to working with you guys. I look forward to helping you to get some strategy and some techniques and some skills to decrease the crippling effect of anxiety in your life. Thank you guys for being here. Love you much. Be well.